Kiwi, and I'm very pleased to reintroduce a guest back to Kiwi FM and a new guest to the show, Steve Plowman from Hallertau Brewery out in West Auckland joining us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Wammo. Good to be back.
Yeah, I normally do the beer review on the Drive Show every second Thursday, but now finding a new home here with a slightly different take on the whole beer thing.
Yeah,
aren't we? We're doing not so much doing a review as such, but working our way through the various beer styles.
Yeah,
and I didn't know there were so many beer styles.
A lot of people don't. Yeah. Hence the idea for the show. Yeah, because I think it's important. A lot of interest is sort of coming to the top about craft beer, craft breweries, and the whole craft beer movement.
Isn't it exploded over the past 2 years? I would say,
yeah,
really taken off.
And I think it's on the improve. So I think there's a lot of sort of misinformation out there in terms of what craft beer is and the types of beer available, and a lot of people just tend to focus on a couple of styles when really there's 26 odd different styles of beer. Yeah,
because if you were just fresh into sort of thinking about beer, you'd go, there's a light beer and there's a dark beer.
Yeah, well, and people tend to sort of think you get lagers or ales.
Yeah,
and that's sort of it. But within those sort of two broad definitions, there's a lot of different options.
And so what we're going to be working off is a set of guidelines, aren't we?
Yes.
That you sent me a couple of weeks back, and it's this massive document of guidelines. Now, who's it been put out by?
Well, this is set up by a association called BJCP, or the Beer Judge Certification Program. And this is a bunch of North American homebrew nerds came together and sort of set up some guidelines in terms of what the beer styles can be categorised under, and then defining them quite tightly in terms of judging, basically. Right. But it's really helpful to sort of refer to them, and it gives you information about styles, and it's really helpful for people if they like a style of beer, but they don't know why they like it. They can go and look at this, and it'll sort of quite accurately define what that beer is in terms of colour, flavour, bitterness, aromas, all those sort of things, so people can sort of work backwards and understand what it is in their craft beer that they're actually enjoying.
Okay, and we're starting off right from the beginning in the lager section, the light lagers at that.
Light lagers, which is an important place to start.
Yeah.
A lot of people sort of overlook that when they get into craft beer and move straight on to the hops, but there are some interesting styles of light lagers. And the one we're looking at today is a Munich Helles, which is... Yeah, it's a nice style of craft beer. There's some good international ones, and there's some good local ones as well.
And obviously originated Munich or thereabouts.
Yeah, well, that's the original. The origins of this beer are from the lager revolutions in Europe, sort of in the late 19th century, and up until then, Munich only brewed dark beers. So they sort of came up with their own style of light lager, which tends to be more malt focused. It's really based around that fat malt palate.
And may also have a light, noble hop aroma.
Yes.
Perhaps very light. I'm thinking very, very light.
Yeah.
Barely detectable, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of leeway in there, and some of the more modern examples of this beer still have that nice sort of solid malt background, very clean lager flavour profile, but then add a little bit more sort of that really noble hop, or what's commonly called a European hop.
So you've brought in a bottle of what should be an example of the original, or from the region where this comes from. Okay, so what is that?
Well, that's the Paulaner, which is one of the original Munich breweries, and of course it's one of the breweries which is in the Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
one of the sort of 6 breweries that is within the Munich city walls and can be considered a Munich brewery. So again, a very old brewery. It's probably going to tell me how old it is in here. No, it doesn't. It's very old. 1634.
Gosh, the monks would have been in control at that point.
Yes,
no doubt.
So, and it's just a really good example of that style of beer.
Okay, well let's open that puppy up and see whether or not it fits into the guidelines for this.
So what we're looking for is that lovely golden straw colour, good carbonation, soft malty.
Cheers.
Aromatics, hay.
Certainly got that that light, very light straw sort of look to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're getting that aromatic, and it is quite malty. It's quite rich. You're getting some sort of toasted sort of creaminess.
It's got a good froth, good head to it.
Good head, and there is probably that sort of little remnant of that sort of spicy noble hop character floating around as well.
Very light, very crisp,
Very smooth.
flavoured water.
A little hint of oxidation creeping in there.
Yeah.
A little bit of that sort of soft cardboardy sort of taste.
How would that have got in there?
It's just the age of the beer. I mean, importing beers from Europe can be, really challenging in terms of
getting it here on time.
This is best before August this year, which is not bad. But that would probably have a 10-month shelf life. So it's sort of bit of rough treatment sort of ages the beer quite quickly.
Is that the rule with lagers, and especially going into talking about these light lagers? You really don't want them to stick around for too long. They're meant to be young and crisp.
Young, fresh, because it's such a delicate malt hop flavour profile. Any sort of signs of age or oxidation or wear and tear on the beer is really quite apparent.
It's not bad though, eh?
It's actually a nice beer. You know, that's soft, and you get that lovely creamy malt sort of texture on the palate. And there's just enough hops in there, so it finishes crisp.
And probably if you were to choose a beer at 9:48 in the morning, it would probably be something along those lines. Yeah,
it is. So this is the sort of beer they're drinking at Oktoberfest, but they tend to drink a slightly stronger version of that. With slightly more hop.
And so something that we're trying to do every week is to get an example of the beer from the region that it comes from, but also then a local interpretation of that beer. And you've brought in today's local interpretation. So
we've got the Tuatara Brewery brew Heller's style, which is based on this original Munich style. So that's the style. Tuatara brought it in a couple of years ago to complement their range, because it's just that nice sort of soft hop, smooth malt. Is
Tuatara a craft brewery, or is it part of something else? It is the independent?
Yep, they're an independent craft brewery. They're experiencing a lot of growth at the moment, but they're doing a pretty good job in terms of upping production, but still maintaining some really nice beers. You see that they've got good distribution, don't they? They have, yeah. They've done really well. They're through Allied, and they've sort of it's quite readily available. Yeah. So it's one of those craft beers which is it's a pretty sure thing. It's in pretty good condition usually. They're managing the production well, and it's actually really well priced as well. Okay, let's try the Tuatara Munich Helles. Again, this is meant to be a very light beer, slightly sweet, quite malty, and a sort of good amount of carbonation, sort of a straw sort of look to the colour of it in the glass. Very similar colour, I'll say that. It's got a much bigger head to it as well. See, the biggest difference in this is going to be the New Zealand ingredients. You're using New Zealand hops, and I think, or mostly New Zealand hops and New Zealand malt. So on the nose, you're getting a little bit more hop aroma, I think. Yeah. And the beer just smells that little bit fresher as well. Yeah. As you expect with a local beer rather than imported beer. But nice hop aroma. The maltiness is there, and it just appears the appearance is fantastic in the glass. Yeah, definitely more of a dense characteristic to it. Bit more weight, bit more hop, a little bit more hop flavour in this one. But again, it's still quite a nice delicate beer. There's good maltiness coming through. Finish is clean, crisp, nice and fresh. How does it compare to the first one? Well, I think in terms of the style guidelines, they both tick all the boxes. Okay. The bitterness is spot on, sort of around probably that high to mid 20s bitterness units. And there is that malt character there. The malt character is quite different from the different origin of the malt. And that sort of the pull-in of the Munich one has a little more oxidation, which makes it appear a little bit sweeter on the palate. Nice to know that a beer like this can taste quite different within the strict guidelines that are available. You can still get very different characteristics. Well, the yeast profile produces quite a different character as well. So they're probably using similar sorts of lager yeast, but with unique characters as well, which makes sort of a difference to the way the beer sits on the palate as well. I quite like the first one, but because this one's so much more fresh and you can taste that freshness, then I quite like the Tuatara. And this beer is probably the consummate intro to craft beer, I have to say. It's not going to scare you away with all these massive flavours. It's got a nice little bit of malt, nice little bit of hop, but it's just a nice transition from your sort of standard mainstream lager. Would it be fair to say next time someone asks for a shandy, just say, no, don't get a shandy, just try a Munich Helles? Yep. Yeah. So it's 5% lager, and you can't really fault that. That's great beer. Great example of the style, and good value for money.
Great. And do you prefer the Tuatara?
They're both quite different. I think if the Paulaner was like fresh from the brewery, you'd see a slightly improvement in just the quality and the overall sort of way the beer sits together. But for being the same style, they are quite different now and have their own properties. But in this form, I think that the Hellers is a great beer. It's a better beer.
Excellent. We'll be looking at the Munich Hellers. What will we be looking at next week, do you think, Steve?
Next week, I think we're going to get into something a little bit more serious, which is the Pilsner style.
Okay, excellent.
Which is, still a lager, still a golden lager, but a step up in terms of mostly hop flavour. You tend to get a lot more hoppiness.
Look forward to that next week. Steve Plowman from Hallertau Brewery out in West Auckland, thanks so much for coming on in. Looking forward to another session next week.
My pleasure. See you next week.
It's